Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Facebook founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg has broken his 5-day silence on the data breach scandal involving voter profiling firm Cambridge Analytica. In a note shared on Facebook last evening, Zuckerberg said, and I'm quoting now, "We have a responsibility to protect your data, and if we can't, then we don't deserve to serve you." End of quote. Further, sharing the details of the genesis of this very crisis and Facebook's plan to prevent such data harvesting and manipulation in the future, the Facebook founder said, and I quote again, "While this specific issue involving Cambridge Analytica should no longer happen with new apps today, that doesn't change what happened in the past. We will learn from this experience to secure our platform further and make our community safer for everyone going forward." End of quote. Later, in an interaction with CNN, Mark Zuckerberg reiterated his apology and specified some steps that the social media giant is undertaking. The war of words clearly heating up, but after staying silent for a day, Congress President Rahul Gandhi has just finally responded to BJP's accusation that the Congress has actually been using the services of Cambridge Analytica, the firms accused of data theft and manipulation. Rahul Gandhi, in fact, took to Twitter and called the charges an invention by the BJP. He accused the Bharatiya Janata Party of using this very controversy as a diversionary tactic to deflect attention from the death of 39 Indians in Iraq. And talking of data breach concerns, a 5-judge constitutional bench of the Supreme Court continues to hear the arguments in the Aadhaar case. So today, the Unique Identification Authority CEO Ajay Bhushan Pandey made a presentation before the court. Now, he interestingly conceded that there was no institutional mechanism in place to check denial of benefits to Aadhaar holders. Let's bring in Ashmit Kumar, who was there in court today. Ashmit, what were the highlights of that presentation? Some very interesting concerns being put to light.
Well, quite an unusual day as far as the Supreme Court is concerned. You don't always see a projector being set up with 2 massive screens with a PPT presentation, a PowerPoint presentation being shown to the judges. Well, that was the case today in court number 1. The bench headed, a 5-judge bench headed by none other than the Chief Justice himself. We had the UIDAI CEO, Mr. Pandey, making a presentation to clear any doubts that the bench might have had with respect to Aadhaar. But what's interesting is that in the process of clearing those doubts, in the process of demonstrating how Aadhaar works, Mr. Pandey was witness to a number of probing questions by the Apex Court, and that translated into 3 important concessions that the UIDAI CEO made before the bench. The first key concession is that as of today, there is just no institutional mechanism. Justice Chandrachud had in fact observed that it is one case where perhaps there are problems with authentication and therefore the benefits are denied. Justice Chandrachud observed that it's an entire case, it's a different case entirely when the authentication does take place, but despite that, due to corrupt elements, there are benefits, there are access to goods and services that are denied by key stakeholders. And that was one admission that in fact the CEO made, that as of today there's no institutional mechanism to check that. Aadhaar alone cannot do that, that the onus would rest on the respective ministry, and that as of today Aadhaar just does not have the wherewithal to address that question. The second key concession admission that the UIDAI CEO made is that biometrics cannot be relied upon 100%. Let's be fair to him, he also pointed out that there are other ways and means of authentication, such as iris scan, such as OTP. So there are other mechanisms, but that's another key admission being made, that 100% reliability cannot be placed in biometrics. And finally, he also conceded that rural areas, there are issues that often emerge with respect to authentication, given the lack of electricity, internet access. So those are physical issues which hinder the process of authentication. So some key admissions coming in from the UIDAI CEO. The next key date to watch for, however, will be March 27th. That's coming Tuesday. That's when he's likely to continue with his PowerPoint presentation to the Chief Justice of India. Back to you.
Of course, Ashmit, that's going to be really closely watched. But, you know, on a lighter note, this should be made into a norm. PowerPoint presentations actually being used in the Apex Court. But yes, it will certainly make our work as journalists more interesting. Let's move on, though. But staying with the Aadhaar subject as a whole, government's case for Aadhaar remains strong even after the Facebook data breach. That's the word interestingly coming in from the former chairman of UIDAI, Nandan, Nilekani. Talking to the media today, Nilekani expressed confidence that the government will win the Aadhaar legal battle. Here's exactly what he had to say in Aadhaar's defense.
I think the government has a very strong case. In fact, as you know, the case is currently on in the Supreme Court, and the government started its arguments yesterday. So I'm very confident that the government will win the case.
But they use a very weird brick and mortar argument, 13-foot high walls and 5-foot...
No, I think physical infrastructure is part of security. I mean, you want to make sure that nobody else gets in, right? You also have to have digital infrastructure, but you need both physical and digital security.
That's Nandan Nilekani defending. You have a long day ahead of you, so we leave it at that. Let's get back to a big story back home. The old guard will make way for new blood once the $23 billion Vodafone Idea merger is completed. Now, the two companies have announced a new leadership team for the merged entity. So let's pull those up for you. Balesh Sharma, who is now the Chief Operating Officer at Vodafone India, will become the CEO of the new merged entity. So that's an important move over there. Akshay Mundra, who is currently the CFO of Idea Cellular, will continue to look after the finances of the merged entity. Now, what's interesting is that the current CEOs of both Vodafone and Idea will be moving out of their offices and assume new responsibilities, again within the group, but larger roles and not directly responsible within the merged company. So, for instance, Himanshu Kamania will become a member on the board of the merged entity. Sunil Sood, who is right now the CEO of Vodafone India, will join the Vodafone Group's AMAP leadership team and will also help governance through board membership. If you look at the other areas and the other core team, for instance, there you go, Amrish Jain, who is currently the Deputy MD at Idea, will be the COO. The other moves include Manish Dawar, who is right now the CFO of Vodafone India, who will be responsible for the integration and transformation of the merged entity. P. Balaji, another important executive who is right now at Vodafone India, who is going to be important as far as the entire corporate affairs and strategic relations and external affairs are concerned. So they have balanced out Vodafone Idea in the merged entity, yes, but market will perhaps be slightly concerned that the old CEOs of the companies are not going to remain, and that is something that you should watch out for, at least for the Idea stock tomorrow morning.
The Aam Aadmi Party government has presented a 53,000 crore rupees budget for the national capital. Once again, it has increased allocation to key sectors like healthcare and education, and has also focused on steps to tackle pollution in the national capital. In its effort to fight pollution within the city, the government has allowed a concession of 50% in the registration of CNG cars. The government has also said that it will install solar panels over 16-kilometer cycle track, and as many as 1,000 indoor display boards will be installed in government buildings to provide information on air pollution levels. Apart from the green aspect of the budget, the government has also allocated 13,800 crore rupees towards education for the installation of CCTV cameras, self-defense classes for girls, and the promotion of sports. And finally, healthcare. This has been a key subject and a key area of this government. The government has now allocated 6,700 crore rupees towards health insurance for all and mohalla clinics. Those were the key highlights. And for more on that, we are now joined by Mr. Somnath Party, former Law Minister and Aam Aadmi Party MLA. Somnath Party, always a pleasure to speak with you. You know, we're going to get to health and education in just a bit, sir. But of course, the key focus has been the headline, if you read online, is the fact that this is India's first green budget. But Mr. Somnath Party, if I were to, be the devil's advocate, because many are wondering that if the Delhi government had some solutions to tackle this menacing issue of Delhi's air pollution, why didn't the government do something for the last few years when Delhi, especially during the winters, had become a gas chamber? How would you respond to those who feel that this is too little, too late?
Ron, I appreciate you asking the straight question. But before I come to your question, let me say 5 things about this budget. First is that the first time in the history of any assembly across the nation, there was an outcome budget. And second was that there are deadlines on every key project of the government. Never ever happened in the history. So such judicious and conscious use of public money has never happened by any government across the country, across the nation. Number 2, such massive investment in 2 key sectors. The one is education, and second is healthcare, and third is the way we have decided to tackle this menace of pollution, air pollution majorly. There are 26 agenda items to be executed to contain and cure. First is to contain and then to cure air pollution in Delhi, which has now become such a deadly disease across the city that children, adults, everybody is badly affected.
Yes, sir. Of course.
And next is such judicious use on transportation such uses of public money on solar schemes, electric buses, that brings massive uses of technology. I mean, Aam Aadmi Party, in contrast to central government, if you look at, if you analyze the budgets of central government and Delhi government, we have used massive technology.
So let's not talk about central government, sir. Let's stick to Delhi.
Budget.
Sir, we talk about central government every single day, sir. Let's talk about Delhi.
No, that's what I'm saying.
My question was
Ron,
simple, sir.
I agree with you.
If the Delhi government, as you claim that you...
When you talk of excellence, then you have to do comparison.
But according to Aam Aadmi Party, the BJP-led government is anything but excellent, sir. Why should you compare yourselves to the BJP-led government? Anyway, sir, let's not quibble over this. The fact of the matter is, if Delhi did have answers to address, this vexatious issue of air pollution, why didn't the government do something 3 years ago? Many are wondering, are you doing it at this point with an eye on the bypolls? That's what your critics are saying tonight, sir.
Ron, unfortunately, our party doesn't at all think of any good to be done to public in Delhi or across the nation, wherever we are, keeping election in mind, unfortunately. We're not election-oriented party. We want to do benefits to people of Delhi. In fact, unfortunately, if you look at the budget speech of our education minister and finance minister, Mr. Manish Sisodia, he used the word called LG in his speech. I think somebody was counting beyond 100 times. So our problem is that anything which we want to do, there is a cap on it. There is a caveat in it. The caveat is that LG Sahab pass kar dein to. Now LG Sahab has to be conscious of his duties towards people of Delhi. His duties are not towards BJP from the party where he comes from. I humbly request, even through you, that such a beautiful budget, the budget which is so dedicated to the key areas of the Delhiites, should be allowed to function the way it has been designed by Manish, the government of Aam Aadmi Party. If it is,
I give that to you.
If it is allowed to be executed the way it is designed, I can assure you, Delhi would not prove only #1 city in India. Possibly this will match the better cities of the world also.
So being Delhiites, I mean, nothing will give us more happiness, than to see Delhi elevate to the levels and, and to live up to the expectations and hopes of this government. But, sir, many are also raising some practical issues with this government. Let's just say, what you have proposed in the budget, 50% concession on registration of CNG cars. Now, the last time I checked, overall CNG vehicles, this is cars, two-wheelers, buses, all of that put together in the city of Delhi, was almost 1 million. The problem is not necessarily of CNG vehicles, but not having enough CNG stations. So while you're talking about concession to CNG cars, why don't you also talk about perhaps concession to to a body like IGL to set up more CNG stations? So these are some of the practical suggestions that are coming in, Mr. Bharti.
No, Ron, you're right. In fact, the problem is that the public transport in Delhi has to be made dependable. Public transport has to be made dependable for every sector, whether it be the rich class, the middle class, the poor class, the metro, the last mile connectivity to every house, to every inner colony, 1,000 electric buses, etc., etc. All of these have to be meticulously executed so that public transport becomes the #1 choice for the people of Delhi. And that is why your suggestion is, of course, to be noted down, that CNG stations will also be there. The moment CNG cars and public transport, the way we have thought of to implement in Delhi, the way they go executed, the way it's written in the book, it's written in the speech, it's designed by the government, surely enough, CNG stations will also be increased in number. Number two, if you look at the budget, the quantum, 53,000 crores. In 2011-12, it was 26,000 crores, 100% increase. Never ever it happened in the history that any government budget has gone double. And it is all because of the honest intentions and because we have succeeded to plug the holes of corruption in the departments of the government.
Mr. Somnath Party, absolutely, point taken.
Show some brilliance through the finance minister's speech.
All right, Ms. Somnath Party, I have time for one last question. You know, you have increased budgetary allocation for education, for healthcare, which we acknowledge. Your overall budgetary allocation, overall, your budget outlay, you know, that has now reached 53,000 crore rupees. That marks a 20% jump. But in another area, sir, where it shows a 29% jump is as far as your expenditure on information and publicity. Mr. Bharti, if the government is doing so much of good work, why do you need to, why do you need to publicize, your achievements in this way? That is something many are wondering and asking you tonight.